gentlemen, I just want to remind you that we actually have an email list and we would love you to join us. If you want to sign up, go to www.thewizardandthepriestess.com and find your sign up button. Join us today. Hello and welcome to The Wizard and The Priestess. This is Nuala with my co-host,
Matt.
We are excited today because Frank has written us... His name's not Frank?
She can be.
I thought so. I thought Frank was a good name. Frank is...
Well, we get a couple of questions through various outlets.
That's right.
So we thought we could just do a Q&A. Hopefully it is as informative. But we've got a fair few here.
Yeah, we do. I'm just making one alias of Frank. So Frank, the Q&A, the question deliverer.
Yes.
Right.
So what's the first one? Am I going first or are you going first?
I'm going to ask you a question, Matt.
Okay.
So, Matthew.
Yes. Nuala.
I want 2 hacks, only 2, on kickstarting the metabolism.
2 hacks, on starting metabolism.
Yes, please.
2 hacks. First, I would eat fermented foods with the meal.
Okay, so sauerkraut,
anything fermented. You can ferment pretty much anything these days, so I would add that to the meal. And I would also probably have some lemon juice. Squeeze a lemon into a cup. Drink that half an hour. Drink a third of that half an hour before the meal.
Oh, okay, yeah.
A third during and a third after.
Why?
Because I want to stimulate hydrochloric acid production.
During.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do it more beforehand to see if you need digestive enzymes, because if you get burpy and gassy, that can be a good way to see if you are digestive enzyme deficient.
And
so
that
I
will
would say
increase your metabolism and therefore...
Well, it's going to relieve any digestive discomfort, but it's also going to kickstart metabolism by getting the whole system going with the acid.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Is that
It's
succinct enough?
I reckon if you've got a slow metabolism, you want to give those 2 things a try, do that. If you need more help,
As a hack.
1-800-MattSorensen.com.
1-800-MattSorensen.com.
Yeah, I mean, you should do that. You should get
I
that.
almost did that, but no one knows how to spell my last name.
Well,
So-
you should have spelled your last name with a... You spell it with an E, Sorensen. E-N-E-N. Sorensen.
E-N. Yeah.
Sorensen, mate.
Well, that's the Swedish way. Sen is the Danish way.
Uh-huh.
Get it right. Okay.
Here we are. Don't ask me a hard one.
Oh.
My brain's a little bit slow.
What's a good alternative for sweet potato?
Why would you want to alter... We just had a bit of a joke about this because why would you want to get rid of sweet potato? Sweet potato is the best.
Well, maybe someone wants to.
Well, I guess if you're going to take away sweet potato, I would look towards beetroot. But then I wonder why you would have what's sweet potato doing on your plate in the first place. So
What's it doing to you?
it's just so good. Sweet potato and everything. I love sweet potato.
So your advice is to not.
Just don't alternate. Just
to.
have it. But I guess if you're doing sweet potato, meal
What if you're doing a
prepping-
fungal cleanse where you can't have any below ground veg?
Well, okay. Well, then you'd have above ground veg then. So just get the leafy greens from the garden. Make sure you cook them a little bit. I don't know what else you do in a fungal cleanse. But yeah, okay. So you're not doing anything below the ground. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is broccoli, but maybe there's another reason not to have broccoli, Everything's good and bad no matter what. You got to get focused on what you're trying to do. So take the advice of whoever is supporting you on your dietary missions. But if you are just wanting to have an alternative to sweet potato,
You're saying don't.
for beetroot.
Beetroot. Okay.
But that, I mean, and then again, you could just have potato, or you could have squash.
Yep.
I mean, it depends what you're trying to alternate from. If you're just trying
Also
to
depends on what your dietary, not what your dietary goal, but
yeah.
what are you
your
going
aim-
towards? Yeah.
What your aim is on that, because from my perspective, just eat it all. But I mean, try it all, test it all. But then if I'm imagining the question from Frank is coming from this idea of maybe wanting to, meal prep or something like that, and not have to, stay away from starchy carbs. Then just opt for more veggies, different veggies, carrots, pumpkin, maybe pumpkin. Why not pumpkin over sweet potato? Because sweet potato's better. Just stick to sweet potato. Anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at. I like sweet
Hope
potato.
you enjoyed that confusion, Frank.
All right. Oh, that was, do we need to be in a relationship?
Do we need to be in a relationship?
Frank? Feels a little bit mean.
Well, there's lots of relationships.
Ah, yes.
How deep do we go?
Well,
Relationship with
let's say,
self, relationship with other, or relationship with everyone?
Okay, let's say that do you need to be in a romantic relationship, Matt?
Perfect person to ask.
Yes.
You need to be. You don't need out of a survival thing, but that can be individual as well. Because
You threw sweet potato at me. Here's yours.
I love it. Yeah. I don't think it's a necessity out of survival. With that said, I think it's important for humans to be social because we are social creatures and we are designed by nature to be in relation and relationships. So
you don't need to be in a romantic relationship per se, but you do need to be in relation with other humans.
yeah. Thoughts on tank water?
I think tank water is good, to an extent of collecting the water. I'm
assuming that's rain water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would be very particular about the way in which it was filtered before consumption. So reverse osmosis is my thinking. And then you know what? When I was, I used to listen to, I can't remember what the podcast was. What was it called? It was an American podcast. And anyway, I stopped listening to it because they obviously started to get owned by the pharmaceutical companies, and then so slowly it started to divert. But there was a lady on there, and she was talking about how she had created her own reverse osmosis filtration system. And yeah, anyway, that was really cool to listen to. And she had essentially was creating a filtration system that was as if it had been moved. The water was being run over rocks and moved.
That's artesian filter.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it was, anyway, it did a lot of different things. And then at the very end, it did this extra thing. Anyway, it was really cool, but I've never heard of anything that actually comes close to doing what she was doing to the water.
Yeah.
Do you have anything more?
Well, that's what artesian spring water is all about.
Okay.
It gets percolated through the earth over long periods of time.
Yep.
And it's been remineralized by the rocks and the earth itself. And it's been recharged. And then it's got a higher, what's called TDS, total dissolved solid count. So if you have remind me, reverse osmosis, does that take out everything?
No, so it takes it out and puts back in. That's the whole point.
So with the TDS score, it actually gives something for the cells to hold on to. So if you have filtered water all the time, it can actually strip the minerals out of the cells, so it actually goes extracellular, and that's why a lot of people cramp after they have filtered water for a time. But then if you add a bit of salt to the water, it remineralizes it. So ideally you want somewhere between 350 to 500 total dissolved solids, or TDS, in the water to make it go intracellular. So it has a detox effect.
Okay. I guess when we talk about filtered water, we've got to filter the water in the right way, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be drinking. Yeah, because then there's that idea of having alkaline water, and that's not really the thing either.
Look, if you're acidic, it's great.
Well, everyone's acidic, aren't they? So then is it really great for everyone?
I would say it's like distilled, right? Distilled will detox anything.
Yeah, right.
But it's good for about 10 days, distilled water, and then it starts stripping the body of the salts and the minerals that it needs to conduct itself.
Yeah, right. So maybe reverse osmosis actually doesn't put stuff back into it, now that I think about it. Because I think the idea is the way that it moves the water. But, I really like that idea of the artesian spring water that actually is, because that's something this lady was saying, that water's meant to filter down like that.
Yep. But then it also percolates up over time.
Right. So that's the whole, like, she was explaining that.
That's the well, kind of what's supposed to happen with a well, with
Go
well
up
water.
and down.
Yeah. That's like why the Evians and the Fiji water, that's why they're so expensive. Because they're artesians. Yeah.
And it's so good,
Yeah.
except that it's been in a plastic bottle.
Well, you get
Oh,
one.
what's the other one? Evian. Is there one other one that comes in a glass bottle? Maybe it's Evian.
Oh, it's got a silver lid. That one?
Oh, you mean no.
No. Voss or something?
Oh, Voss. Right. I don't know.
I don't know if that's artesian.
No, but Evian is the one that we've had like in Australia for a really
Yeah.
long period of time.
The problem with
interesting.
those bottled waters is when they get delivered to the shops, they often sit out in the sun
Yeah.
before they get put away.
Yeah.
So sunlight and plastic just doesn't have a very great mix.
No, so that's the whole reason you shouldn't buy a bottle, let alone not buy the bottle, because you... Anyway, it's really interesting with water because obviously water is life-giving and it's so important, but it's also it kind of takes a lot of, like, thinking power to
Yeah.
know what's the best, and then everyone has a different idea on what's the best.
Yeah. The best water you can really have is artesian that's local to your area,
Yeah.
because you get a homeopathic dose of all the microorganisms within that environment.
Which is obviously going to be within the food system,
Yeah.
and then obviously going to prepare you for the season around.
I think there's a website, naturalspring.com, something like that,
Yeah.
where it'll show you where all the natural springs are around the world. And closest to us in Sydney, I think there's one in Lawson, in the Blue Mountains. Is that it?
I don't think it is, no.
Right.
Maybe .com, let's try .com.au. If you are a natural spring... Oh, hang on. No.
All right.
Anyway.
We'll put it on Instagram.
No, we won't, actually.
We won't.
But hopefully we'll find it. And if you are someone who knows a lot about spring water, reach out so we can direct people. Aqua isn't interested in this conversation, mate. Can I stop hair falling out apart from lowering stress in the body?
I can't remember the hormone that is responsible for hair loss. Essentially, yeah, stress is a big one, but genetics is also another big one. It depends on what age it starts happening. If it starts happening really early, it's likely genetic. And later on in life, especially if it falls out in clumps, that's typically stress. So episodes, well, pretty much every episode that we've done should
Help you.
be able to help on some
Or
level.
maybe not. You might just like add more stress because you're not feeling adequate.
Well, hopefully you can listen to us and get
and then
some inspo.
feel confident in your adequacy, that you are enough. I want to add to this. So in TCM terms, the hair on your head is related to the liver, So it's related to that whole wood element. And so if it is that...
So if it's thinner hair, is that a liver issue? If
yes,
it goes
it can
thinner?
be. Yes.
Okay.
And you would...
My liver's fine then, because that's thick as.
Good for you.
Thank you.
It is greying though.
I'm dyeing
if you
it.
can't see.
I'm dyeing it silver, bit by bit. That's what that is.
Oh, he's got that old, like, what's that called? Fox.
Silver fox thing.
Fox going.
That's the dream.
Yeah, but there is, so the colour then is that genetic aspect of the kidney.
Okay.
But the loss of hair is definitely related to the wood element. So whilst you could potentially have, some sort of genetic implication in terms of stress or stresses that you have maintained in this time, in this life, you have the potential to absolutely adjust that. And I can't remember exactly what the question was, what was the question? Can you do something without stress? Oh, okay, yeah. So you can, however, I would say that holistically, or at least from a TCM perspective, we want to rebuild the yin aspects that are depleted by the stress. And so if you can't just reduce the stress, you have to actually nourish and nurture that wood element.
Well, that ties in with hormonally, because it's dihydrotestosterone, which comes from a DHEA, which is an anabolic hormone.
Yeah, right, yeah. So that's yin.
Yeah.
Yin factor. So yeah, absolutely. So I would say that, yes, you need to reduce the stress, and that stress can be innate. So it's like intergenerational stress, essentially, that you have to I don't know if I would like to call it intergenerational, but it's like everything has some aspect of your parents that, whether it's genetic or whether it's environmental, that has been, layered onto you as a human. And then you have to decide whether you're going to brush over it and pretend that it's not impacting you, or actually lean in and do the work to overcome it. And that's where, yes, we need to, one person's stress is another person's power. So we've got to kind of understand where our own stress lies. So if your hair starts to thin or fall, and you're like, oh yeah, my dad has that as well, and every man in my lineage has that, or every woman, or whatever it might be, then, and you just accept that as, okay, well, that's just how it is. I'd be really diving into, okay, reducing the stress, or what's your perceived stress, and then also strengthening your rebuilding the yin or the DHEAs like you were talking about there. Yep. So I don't think it's just about stress management. You must nurture and you must rebuild as well. You need to nurture the yin, which is the actual formation of the physical.
Okay.
There was another question about grey hair in there as well, and I'll just touch on that, which is the greying of the hair on the head.
Oh, is it a sign of nutrient deficiency?
Whether you could maybe touch on the nutrient deficiency, from my perspective, the greying is the indication of the kidney jing well, like the jing is starting to...
What's the jing?
The jing is your overall longevity or vitality that you...
So it's going down.
And you know what, it can be adjusted, because this is the power that is, at least from a TCM perspective, we have the strength to tonify, not necessarily the jing, but we have the strength or the ability to tonify and adjust the kidneys so that you can actually work with what is innately inside of you, and that is like the essence of qigong and tai chi and all of those things, is actually brightening the chi. So you can actually have the ability to...
Is there a DIY life hack?
Well, you know what, we talked about that rubbing of the lower back every morning, so that kidney...
200 times?
200 times, yeah. Yep. Something like that. But also, it is a matter of living a happy life. So where are you not happy? Ask yourself that question. Where am I not happy? And move towards happiness. And I think we really, we diminish that question every day. We're like, oh, yeah, well, can't just have everything. You know, I can't just like pack up and move to Bali.
Do you
I
think?
can't just sell my apartment and move to Bali.
Do you think we strive for happiness, or we actually strive for being invisible and being? Sorry, we don't strive for wellness. We strive for no pain instead.
Yeah, right. Because we're luxuriating around our comforts instead of like actual deep happiness. Like for example, I was up at my friend's not so long ago, and she's just got this beautiful garden, and I cannot tell you how content I was by sieving the soil for her to then put the seedlings into. So yeah, I was just sieving the soil and able to put her and then she would put the seedlings into it, and we could have probably sat there all day doing that. The children were not interested as we are, but yeah, that contentment that I was given, like it reminded me of sitting, what it must have been like, or must still be like, for those women and families that sit in the fields and tend to their gardens. And I feel very, very grateful that we don't have to rely on that to some extent, because being a farmer is a hard knock life in some ways, but also I feel incredibly grateful that in those moments that I could spend a lot more time doing just that. Yeah.
Okay. What is deja vu?
Oh, yeah. So deja vu is, from my perspective, the first thing that comes to mind is two wires being crossed. So imagining that you have the longitudinal and latitudinal lines that are constantly moving on the Earth, if you ever did geography. So my perspective is that it is when those bounce and they hit each other. And so there is that idea of quantum physics that everything has already happened. So you actually, the way I see it, when I do have deja vu, I often think about, like this has already happened, and I'm being reminded of what already happened. So I'm being kind of reminded to lean into that, and there's a reason why I'm being reminded of whatever that was. And then there was something else that you had shared. So do you want to take that away? Well,
deja vu, I think the definition is seen again, French, obviously.
Okay.
So it's French for seen again, and it's kind of ties into what you were talking about. In the raw material, they talk about all the densities, but they're all happening all the time at once.
Yep.
And it's when as we measure time, when these timelines, what we would call a timeline, when they kind of intersect each other. But they look at it as a positive orientation, like you're following the breadcrumb trail.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's right, yeah. So
I
that's
remember
what
that.
That is.
And it's such a funny thing, because the deja vu that seems to happen, for me at least, is just it's like just simple things that I'm like, oh, what are you trying to tell me? Like brushing my teeth. Or actually recently I had deja vu about something. Maybe I shouldn't share this, but I can't remember. I actually can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like eating dinner with a certain person.
Right.
And in a certain way. And it just I was like, oh, right, I remember this. I've been here before, and it felt like it was like a movie replaying, which I actually haven't had deja vu like that in a long time. So would you have anything to say about that, Matt? That when deja vu plays a little bit more extensively, sometimes I know that deja vu feeling, and it's kind of like microseconds or it's not more than, let me think, like 3 or 4 seconds max. Whereas this sort of felt like the program or the experience was playing a very simple thing. It might have been me sitting in my lounge room, my kids were playing in front of me, and then I was maybe sitting and eating, and I just fully had already experienced this exact thing. And that was just playing out for a time, maybe like minutes. Yep. Do you have anything?
It'd be similar. It'd be kind of I'll say related, cousin relation to a dream, where it's some kind of message from somewhere in some space, in some time. So I think I feel like when it happens and you want to meditate on, you're drawn to meditate with it and sit with it and ask the question. Could just be like a self-reflective thing, or you might get the gut feel that there is like something is trying to guide you.
Yeah. I really find this life sitch
Life stitches, yeah.
with like 3 small children, and my kids don't go to bed till later. Now that the sun stays up till later, I then go to bed with them and wake up with them. There's not a lot of space in the day to sit and contemplate. And I wonder what the other parents did. Like, when did they get their reflection time? Because I try and take a few moments before I go to bed to do my meditation. And I usually do that quite okay. But it's not long enough, I've definitely done enough meditation to know that you need at least an hour a day. And the more stressed you are, the more meditation you need to be doing. But then I also know that sleep is the ultimate power of healing. So it's such a conundrum. I just need a nanny.
A nanny.
Anyone out there wanting to be my nanny? Hit us up.
Yep.
1-800-MatthewSorensen.com.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
going to be a thing.
Do you want me to find you a question?
Sure. Did I asked that one, didn't I?
You did ask that
Yeah.
one, and we sort of both answered it. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, do you want me to just go to the next one?
Sure.
You're not in order anyway. Okay. Explain marriage and its purpose.
There is a mystical version and there's a corporate version.
Tell me the corporate version.
Ring up any place and say you're getting married, and your bank account will know all about the corporate version.
Oh, Matt.
That's the corporate version. The corporate version is essentially getting the government involved, and you have to be a registered couple. But
You don't even need to do that, do you, Matt?
Marriage, the word marriage means to become one.
Oh, yeah.
That's the mystical concept. That's the mystical ideology about that. But what we have today in the corporate world that we live in is just that.
Would you say corporate or capitalist?
Either or.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so me and my partner have been together for 13 years, and we often joke about, well, not joke anymore, actually. We just sort of like, no, we're not getting married because we were staunch, no marriage, because we don't want to have a 3-way relationship with the government. And anyway, then we went to this like tantric festival one time and we got spiritually married. And I bring that up sometimes because my partner likes to be like, because, obviously we've been together for a really long time. We have 3 children.
Getting serious.
And when we meet people, they're like, oh, your wife said this. And he always turns around and he's like, she's not my wife. Which is really...
technically true.
Yeah. And I often ask him, he's like, well, it's just literal. He's very literal human. He's like, well, you're just not my wife. And I'm like, okay. It feels very...
Take that.
Very... strong and uncomfortable when you say that, maybe, because maybe that...
Would you feel better if you guys were literally married? Corporately married?
Corporately married. I don't need to be corporately married, but I definitely have been wanting to have like a ceremonious sort of wedding and to be maybe technically his wife. That feels kind of nice. But yeah, anyway, my point in that is that idea of the mariage feels really special and lovely.
So
you would just say that? Is that all you needed to say about that? Do you think it's a Christian construct, or do you think that mariage
didn't come from Christianity, but I think, like anything, it's been written in Scripture. It's been originally intended to be interpreted one way, more of a metaphor / mystical viewpoint, but then it's been interpreted to what it is today. And I think the people... What's the divorce rate at the moment? Like 50-50, something?
Yeah,
Ish. Yeah. I think in the West, I think it's around 50%. I know from having 4 sisters, I can tell you a lot of young women...
45.6 for men and 42% for women.
Right.
Oh, no, sorry, that's the age. Men are getting divorced at 45 and women are getting divorced at 42. Interesting conception, because that is a point, that is the cycle. That is the 42.
What's the average age people get married?
That isn't currently written down. Oh, yeah, 25 to 29 years is the common age to be married.
So that you're still figuring out who you are at that age. And I think somewhere between 25 and 35 is a really weird age anyway, just because you've been around long enough on this earth. You think you know how everything works, but then you hit your 40s and your 50s and your 60s, and it's like you'd give anything to tell your younger self certain things and give that person advice. I don't know what our culture says about marriage at the moment, but I was engaged, and I got engaged because I thought that was just what you're supposed to do when you hit 30. So I was playing along, but then realised that the person I was with wasn't for me. And then just, we had to both go through a lot of pain for that. But I could have just gone along with it and been married. I would have been married 8 years now if that was the case. I'd probably be really unhappy, and then probably have children and then showing them how not to have relationships. So, which is quite it's not a Christian construct, but it's very commonly Christian trait.
Yeah, I think a very common religious trait. I wouldn't necessarily put that down to Christianity, but I wouldn't see it as a bad thing. I think that we also are spoilt for choice, and society is shifting so much that it's giving us that power to actually make a decision that isn't what our grandparents or people ahead of us. So I think there is a much more fluid romantic relationship acceptance in society. It is much more fluid, and I think for everything there's pros and cons, but I would say there's more pros to having that fluidity than there are cons in many ways, because it allows people the richness of experiencing life. We do, however, know that when children are involved, it has an impact, because the value system must shift. And if that value system shifts before the ages of 7, being that, mum and dad live in the home and this is how we work, and then the value system wouldn't generally shift, because obviously if 2 people can't work it out together, they're then going to go and live their life separately, and then their value system is going to probably be different, because that's the reason they didn't hold or maintain a relationship in the first place. So then this child is going to be split in 2 directions as to what is available here and what is available there. And so the fluidity in that is probably, that can be a con, but then the positive of that is that if mum and dad aren't working well together, hopefully, ideally, they're going to iron those things out and be able to work it through, and like both parents actually really want that,
Well, the thing with that, both parents need to be adults.
Exactly.
For that to happen.
Yeah, and that's a big one. That's a difficult thing, because how many, we spoke about last week, didn't we, about how many people actually graduate past 12 years old. And that's a hard thing in our world, because there's so much generational, I truly believe that because we are living through this transitional period, because we are here now, we have incarnated right now in the transition from what was kind of that, what were we talking about a while ago, about the levels of love, and it starts with sex and violence.
It doesn't start there. I think goes down to there. Starts with unconditional.
Oh, we start at the top. All right, so let's just say we start at the bottom.
Sure.
Thanks. And we work our way up to true love,
Yeah.
unconditional love. Okay, so I'm just thinking about that in terms of, say, we've probably been at this sex violence love level for the whole of our existence and our parents' existence and our grandparents' existence in some way. Not in all forms, but in like kind of a capitalist construct where corporations taking us now, where government is governing over us now.
So you're talking sex and violence love in a capacity of domination.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably also in other forms as well, which you might add in now, but just that idea that we are like rife with disharmony. And we're now moving into this next era that is harmony, that is trying to really put the humanitarian on top, the humanness back on top, the real connection, divine, relational connection to earth and all of those things is like moving us forward now. We're going to be propelled that way. And so I think, do you know what I was going to say? We're going to move up a level from that real sex violence. Transcend as a whole. And you're probably feeling the ripples of that. These like definite like ripping off of layers, these like chunks of your heart being broken to try and help you transcend.
Well, transcend and include, because that inclusion is also still a part of you. So it's still accepting that and knowing that is still a part of you, but then you can see it as a witness and not be victimized. Yeah, that sounds better. Victimized by it.
Yeah. So, I think that we can probably find a way that this fluidity of relationships is positive, and we can also see that the ability of two people to actually harness what marriage stands for, and this connection of two people in formation and being able to transcend as one together may or may not be the way. But I mean, it'd be very funny if dolphins, you know how we write about animals and we're like, oh, the dolphin finds its mate and lives for life together. You know, imagine the dolphins are writing books about humans saying the same thing, and then all of a sudden they're like, we've had to change our history because the humans actually don't just find a mate and stay together and procreate.
Do you reckon they'd be written in Finnish?
Finnish? Could be. I mean, Dolphanian maybe.
Ooh.
But yeah, like, you know, imagine those books being written about the humans. Like,
Yeah.
I don't believe it is a necessary evil that we find a romantic relationship from 25 to 45 and then we leave it. The hardest thing for me is that during that time, I'm hopeful that these are the hardest years with little humans. I know that I've spoken to parents before and they're like, oh, yes, no. This is not the hardest time. It's a different hard.
Yeah.
So it's like this stretching. What I'm feeling now as a parent is this stretching open. With 3 little humans, you are being stretched and pulled, and you can see, as me, with awareness of what's happening with my children and how they're growing and all these things, I can see that I'm like, oh my gosh, you really needed me in that moment and I wasn't able to give you what you needed in that moment. So hopefully I can spend some time with you tonight. Oh shit, I didn't spend time with you tonight. I hope that didn't leave a mark in your brain or in your heart or in your visceral body. You know, and then you're kind of turning it around and then you notice their behavior act up and you're like, okay, I can see you in that. Like this constant stretch, and that's with 3 humans, right? It's this constant stretch. And then you've got dinner, sleep, and then you've got reflective time,
Well,
then you've got an hour of
shit
meditation,
on top of that.
and then you've got your own stuff that you're trying to overcome. So it's a real stretch. I find like expansion, stretch feels like the current stage of life that I'm living. What about you, Matt?
What was the question?
Marriage.
Oh, we're still on the marriage one.
Yeah, we can move on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, anyway,
All right.
don't know what my point was, but just that fluidity
That's what came
in
through.
relationship might not necessarily be the worst thing, but let's just
Well, it takes an adult to make a relationship
Consider that.
work. Thoughts on whey protein powder?
I used to be a big fan. I'm not really a fan of protein powders at all, but I guess in our day and age,
Why not?
I don't like the idea that you have to eat something processed when we have the abundance of food that is unprocessed.
Yeah, whey is actually a layer off curdled dairy. That's just the top layer. And the fact that it isn't produced, it doesn't grow on trees, so it's not really it's kind of like an isolated vitamin or isolated protein.
Okay.
So there's nothing in nature that comes in isolation. It all comes in vitamin complexes. So you're really missing a lot of the amino acids available. And you'll see in protein powder, especially with gym goers and bodybuilders, etc., that they have what's called BCAAs, which is branched chain amino acids. Now, they can contain anywhere from 4 to 16 amino acids, but there's a list a mile long that is natural, that you actually get from food. So there is a spot for it. If you're a NRL player, for an example, and you can tolerate dairy and you need a bit of extra to help with training, especially pre-season training, then sure, it's got its place. But in general, you can't really beat food.
So what would you recommend someone who is trying to increase their protein intake but doesn't want, that's like me, that's saying I don't want processed protein?
Food.
Yeah, like what? What's a good
any-
post-workout meal?
Today I had salmon. Tomorrow I'll probably have lamb or something like that.
So just a piece of meat.
Bit of meat, some veg.
Just a meal, a normal meal.
What you would think of as dinner, I would have normally for breakfast.
What about pre-workout?
Pre-workout, for me, it's just coffee.
Fantastic.
Not the blinky coffee, like an actual coffee. I do my blinky coffee during sets. I'd have something small to eat, like a handful of nuts or something, and then have a coffee with some butter, so it's got the fat. Then I'll do my workout, then I'll have breakfast. Then if I need more protein, then I'm going to have another meal.
All right. How do you meditate?
There's many ways to meditate. First of all, you have to be present. Or, no, we'll go before that. You have to desire to... You have to have the desire to meditate. And then... Well, there's lots of ways. I think my favourite way is just to sit or lay down and go into it starts with a contemplation for me, maybe a reflection. And then, firstly, because I've got a very busy mind, I will let all the thoughts that want to crowd that, I'll let them go first, but I'll acknowledge them. So if it was right now, I would acknowledge the thought, okay, I can hear the wind, I can hear the clock, I can hear a child, I can hear the traffic, I can hear the birds, I can hear the thing next door, the wind chime, all those little things. And as soon as I acknowledge it, it comes and goes. And that frees up my, the unconscious bridge, which would be the subconscious, and just allows that to then allow it to go wherever it goes. But for me, I need an intention when I meditate. So I want to get some clarity on something. I want to feel, sometimes it's, I want to feel this, I want to feel that. I've got this problem, so I want to meditate on that and get some clarity before I act or make a decision. Whatever it is, the intention sets the tone. And if I've allowed myself enough time and space, I can get into the zone. Because as soon as you have the intention, you create a negative. And to the degree that you have that clarity of space, it draws its positive to it. And that's how you can use meditation. But I don't think you need to be necessarily hovering underneath the tree to do it, which is what a lot of kind of Western left-brainers think meditation is. I think it can be done almost anywhere, anytime. But I'm better off sort of almost doing something to, distract subconscious mind and then frees up a lot of the space for me to go straight in.
It's quite interesting these days. There's a lot of mindfulness. It's like they're moving away from the word meditation and they're calling it mindfulness.
Yeah, it's rebranded.
And I find that, it's quite interesting having over 10 years ago doing my first yoga teacher training, and then from there did a couple more. But it is quite, and, taught for quite a few years. But it is very interesting to watch this rebrand occur where you're essentially doing the same thing, but you're taking the ancient wisdom from it and making it Western or like acceptable from the Western mind. And it's I just wanted to add that meditation is a place that you're aiming for, and it's not necessarily what you get. So I might set aside time to meditate, but I might not get to a meditative state, and that's okay. And therefore what I get is I breathe, I slow down my nervous system, I land into my body, I calm my thoughts. I'm not someone that goes in with a question usually. I don't go in with an intention, which I probably should start doing. Maybe I'd get more out of it. But I just am using it like that, in a sense of landing and allowing myself to soften, and then I allow whatever comes up to come up, because a lot of the time for me it's my left side brain that is just like pushing and charging. And so I find if I just let that go to the wayside and focus on my contemplative state, I feel mostly gratitude, and that I think is the depth of all things, right? To come back to love and truth in gratitude.
Yeah.
Moving right along. I think we've got...
Is it my turn?
Maybe it's mine.
We'll do one more each.
Okay, go.
Am I asking?
I can ask. Do you want to show
No,
me?
you asked me that.
Oh, okay, you asked me. Yep.
How do I stop negative thoughts or uncertainty sneaking into what I'm trying to manifest?
You have to accept them and allow them to move. Let them sneak in. Don't let them be the sneaky monster. I think that's one of our biggest pitfalls, is that when we have negative thoughts or when we have something that doesn't feel like it's in alignment with what we're trying to aim for, we try and I'm absolutely a victim of this, or victim, or what would I say? Guilty of this. That I can be like, oh, damn it, I was manifesting the thing, and then now I've had this bad thought that's telling me that that's not the thing that I wanted, and shit. But it's actually, don't let it be the sneaky bad thing, and just be like, there you are. Hello, thank you. Not for me. And then I continue on my trail. I think that's one of our, it's a big pitfall to really what do you call that? Anarchize? Is that a word? Make that thing so bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's like you over-exaggerate its badness.
It's just mental inflation.
Instead of being like, oh, yeah, okay, I see you there. And you know what? It's just your subconscious reminding you of where you actually are at and getting you... And then if you have the strength to re-vibrate against it and say, oh, cool, thanks for showing me where I still am. Thank you, but no thank you. This is actually the path that I really want to be on. And this is the way that I really want. and this is my avenue, and this is what's shining for me, and it feels good for me, and I'm going to keep moving in that direction. So instead of it being like, I think that's the same, I'm going to take this in a different direction, but with my children, and they like, you know, my older daughter, she's 5, and she started to, she's playing with truth, and instead of making what she says such a big, nasty, bad thing, I just accept her in that. I'm like, oh, I see that. I see how you're playing and bending what you want to be true or not. And that's okay. And then she will give me quite a funny response that I'm not expecting most of the time. And she's like, yeah, so I just thought that would be more fun if it was like this, or, you know. But I know, like, that for me, when I would, you know, when I started playing with the truth as a child, it was hard, it was wrong, it was, you know, it was definitely not the right thing to do. And I'm not saying that that is. I think it's important that you know, as a parent, you can see when they're not telling the truth, and you should point it out to some extent, potentially. But don't let it be the sneaky thing that no one talks about, that everyone hides away from, that everyone shames and is afraid of. It's just like, oh, yeah, that is. We all have intrusive thoughts. We all think and say things we probably shouldn't, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can't remember if we touched on it last week or the week before. It's Arthur Young's model of name it, blame it, tame it. And you just basically describe that. You name it.
Thanks, Arthur.
You can name it, give it a name, have a relationship with it. Because the more you ignore it and kind of put it aside, or what am I saying? Suppressing it.
Yeah.
Then it's going to grow, and the more unknown it becomes, the more scary it becomes, the more power it has. But if you name it, it's like you've got power over it already. Then you can blame it, say thank you. That's, I don't know, Nuala, for for showing me where I'm out of balance. Or everything I'm doing
You
wrong.
are so welcome. So welcome.
But I'll say thank you where I'm out and leaking power or whatever.
Yep.
Thank you. I've got it from here. You can go now. Hypothetically speaking, of course.
No worries at all, Matt.
So
We finished there.
the old name it, blame it, tame it trick. I think it works really well, and it's sort of quick. It's easy. Well, I'd say it's easy. It takes practice.
Yeah.
But the more you practice it, the more efficient at it you'll be.
Yeah. All right. Lucky last. Let's see where we go here. How do I become comfortable with awkward situations? E.g., feeling like I have to have elevator small talk, or being stuck in between two people arguing.
How do I stop being in awkward situations? Can you say that again?
How do I become comfortable?
Comfortable. Some people call me awkward. Can you believe that?
So strange. How could they think that the
I think I'm normal. It's everyone else's that's weird.
Yeah, I mean...
How do you become comfortable? First, you got to be comfortable within yourself. And then once you're
How
comfortable
do you do that?
Well, listen to episodes. Well, one we did on self-esteem.
Yeah.
Sabotage. And mental health.
Yeah.
Those episodes. Being comfortable within yourself, because what's really happening is if you're in an awkward situation, that's a situation where you aren't able to handle yourself. So you're not maintaining your own center. So if you're in an awkward situation, it doesn't matter if you're in an elevator or between two people or kind of whatever that is. If you've got a sense of self in that space, then it won't bother you. But then how to get there, after listening to those episodes, it's really being comfortable with who you are.
Episode 35.
Episode 35.
What was the other one? Sabotage.
Episode 8, 35, and the 20.
8 is Life from the Shadows.
And 20, the mental health one.
20.
20. I think we did one on self-esteem.
Yeah, that one would be spleen.
Spleen, yeah.
Worry. Episode 14.
14. So what were they?
8, 14, 20, and 35. That'll help you to...
That's where we go deeper into how to maintain a sense of self.
Yeah.
So it's the knowing the self, which can take practice, but it's worth practicing. Accepting the self, and I'm not talking about accepting, just who you are as a person, accepting all the light and all the shadow of it, acknowledging that is a part of you. We've all got a bit of Bill Gates in us. We've all got a bit of Gandhi in us and everything in between. But so accepting that and realizing how that sort of plays out in the greater dance of things, and that we really are all connected. And if you're feeling awkward, then they might be feeling awkward as well. And if they are, then you can just all be awkward together. It's kind of similar with being offended. If you're offended, be offended. Nothing happens. So embrace the awkwardness, I say.
Yeah, or take a page out of Arthur's book, name it,
Blame it,
blame it, and tame it.
Boom.
Enjoy your week, guys.
Thank you.
It is a very special day today. We hope you're enjoying it. And we wish you all a very Merry Christmas.
Oh, it's Christmas.
And, hopefully you've found a quiet space to learn some fun facts that you can take back to the Christmas table and, tell us how it goes.
Keep the questions coming. We love it. Happy holidays.
You've been listening to The Wizard and The Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.